Hi everyone, this is Shadow Wolf 246 coming out of the shadows to give you an idea I have to help the YouTuber called Todd's Workshop with a bow form made by the YouTuber called JoergSprave. The bow is called Instant Legless. I am going to be specifically focusing on the pendulum version of the Instant Legless. Both Todd's Workshop and JoergSprave's YouTube channels will be down in the description, and a link to their videos on the instant legless pendulum bow will be in the description as well. Moving on, JoergSprave's pendulum bow is made up of two bows front to front, side by side, with a loading shaft extending backwards from bow 1. To load the bow, you must push the loading shaft forward, putting strain on bowstring 2, so you can be prepared for the pull back to get ready to launch an arrow. When you let go of the loading shaft, it should equalize. Both sides of the bow, 1 and 2, should equalize in force pushing inward. So this way, it does not accidentally fire off an arrow. And this way you can relax your hand and wait for an opportunity to shoot an arrow. Now, you pull back the loading shaft on bow 1 so that way you can put strain on bowstring 1 to ready aim and fire. Releasing the bow string and the loading shaft should fire the arrow, and there'll be a trigger. It'll fire the arrow out, and bow 1 and bow 2 will be at rest, at which time you can repeat and do again, making this a lot faster and easier to pull back a 100-pound bow, which is a long bow. My idea is based upon a inverse curved, already crafted curve. So the idea is that you have a normal 100-pound bow, a long bow, and a shorter bow just by like 2 to 3 inches, maybe 4 inches, shorter than the long bow, and it is already formed in a curve. It is not put under any stress. That is how it's made. It has an inverse curve, and it is already in this form. That's how you make the bow. You do not make it straight, you make it as a curve. And this will go around the normal 100-pound bow. Notice how the inverse curve and the curved bow is much wider than the 100-pound bow. This is to prevent it turning from one side to the other. You don't want it shifting from one side to the other side. You want it perfectly straight. You don't want it moving out of that position at any way. This is my idea. So, as you saw before, it starts like this. No stress on either string. The shaft is like this. When you pull back, all the stress from this bow will push this loading shaft back into the bow 1, allowing the strain of this bow to push back on this, making your pullback easier on you when you're out here and making it a little safer. This means you don't have to hold it there as strongly. You don't have to hold it as strong when you pull it back. When you fire it off, it should push back into its original state, at which time this bow will pretty much push off as well. So The reason why I have an inverse curve and why this is supposed to be like this is when it gets to a certain point, let's say it gets to a point where this bow is like pulled back to a certain point, it flexes back into that form, into this form. So you are not pulling back that bow at all. That bow just tips past its flex point and it flexes back on itself like this. That way, that bow puts its own strain on its own string, and you are not pulling it back, and you are not basically pulling up another bow. That will help you pull the 1 pound bow, the 100-pound bow, making it easier. When you fire it, hopefully the 100-pound bow pushes past and allows this bow to get pushed back into its original form and not making any difference to power difference, not changing the power load for the arrow, thus creating a compound bow without actually making a compound bow. Basically, I have. Let me zoom out. Basically, this is what it does. You pull it, it loads. You pull this, and it loads itself, and at this point, it flexes and immediately goes into this position. Now, when you fire it, hopefully it will launch and then push itself out of the position and into its original state. I do not know if this will work. I don't know if the physics are there, but I do know that this, to me, makes sense. It makes sense to me that this might work. Having a bow eventually flex itself, get past a tipping point, and immediately flex backwards, then when you launch it, it goes into that. That is how this and this string will work. These two strings will both be under stress. The arrow will be basically held by two strings instead of one. One string is a support string to help push it backwards, where the other string is to help push it forwards after it's launched. This way, the amount of stress you're getting is basically 80%, if not 50%. The idea is to just pull it back, it gets past its tipping point and flexes backwards, taking the shape of a longbow, but not having the same strength as a longbow. Otherwise, you may accidentally snap the bow in the front. The string is loose. It is only tightened when it is in its pulled back position. This way, there is no actual. Well, if you were to have a tight string here, you wouldn't be able to get to this position here. The bowstring itself would prevent you. You would stop halfway and you wouldn't be able to pull back any further. So my idea is to have a loose string in the front, a tight 1 pound bow, 100-pound bow, but it's stuck like so, and then you get the idea. So this is my idea for Todd's workshop. Is this method? It is simplistic. It can be easily produced, but it is very let's just say it's hard to do because in order to build this bow you need a really thick tree that's thick enough to make a bow that is already in a curved form. But that is the idea for my compound bow, my pendulum bow. So this way, instead of having to push forward to load, you can just pull back and it will load itself. So that is my idea. If you like it, please let me know, and if you have a better way of doing this idea, if you can understand my idea, please let me know. Thank you, and I'll see y'all later.